All right, we'll call this meeting to order, September 5th, 2024 at 6 p.m. We're at Oak Ridge City Hall for a regular session of City Council. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. If you rise, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, item 3, roll call. Jackie, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Counselor Coker,
He might be coming in, but still convalescing, excused if otherwise.
okay, thanks. Counselor Bjarnson,
Here.
Counselor Charman,
Excused?
Counselor Brewer,
Here.
Mayor Cutchin,
Here.
Counselor Kenyon,
Here.
Counselor Hollett.
Here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Item 4, additions, corrections, adjustments to the agenda. Any counselor have any suggested changes to the agenda online or here in the room? James, anything? Nothing for me. All right, on to item 5, which is public comment. We'll start online. Is there any public comment online? Please buzz in or raise your hand. How about in the room? Any public comment in the room? Okay. All right, crowd tonight. All right, Mayor, comments, announcements, proclamations. First thing, we have a new incident management team that showed up today, Team Northwest 2. They're still located at the fire camp down by the transfer station, and I'm still attending the Monday, Friday meetings they have at 10 o'clock to get a status. But last team did a great job of getting their arms around these fires, and it's just a matter of keeping those black lines around them for the rest of the fire season. So I don't know if this team will be relieved by another, but I'll let you know as soon as I do. Anything else that James left me here?
There was one addition, Mayor, that I just found out today. The library's having a book sale on Saturday.
Okay.
And to find out the hours, but all day.
That's this Saturday? Okay, library book sale this Saturday. Come on out. And actually the library has a delivery service to the homebound. And you can contact the Oak Ridge Library, call them or by email, or you can walk in and actually see if you can arrange that if you're able. And I don't know about this, James, the Cafe 60, that's
Yeah.
meals for anyone?
Meals.
Tuesday, Thursday at 11:30 at the Nazarene. That's all I have. Item 7 is council comments, announcements. Anything from councilors put out? Okay. Next is item 8, consent agenda 8.1, minutes from previous city council meetings on 8/15/24. Do I hear a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda. I'll second that.
All right. Made by Councilor Brewer, seconded by Councilor Kenyon. Any opposed to the consent agenda? All right, motion passes. On to item 9 is appointments. There are none tonight. Item 10, business from the City Council. 10.1, City Council review of certain future employment contracts. James, you want to introduce this? Or do you want me to?
I'll let you, Mayor.
Okay. All right, so I brought this up verbally 2 sessions ago, I believe, and afterwards it did not get entertained, but I had some conversation with James afterwards and further explained the intent. So the idea is that the City Council has oversight of contracts and oversight of employment contracts. The way that oversight is given is by they approve the collective bargaining agreements for all union employees, and then that is the oversight. That collective bargaining agreement has exactly what they get paid, leave accrual, sick leave accrual, all that stuff. And then they also have oversight of they adopt the employee handbook, which has oversight of any exempt employees that are not hired with the individual contract, but hired instead by a letter offer, which refers to the employee handbook. So city council has oversight of all those employees through the employee handbook that they adopt each year or update each year. So there's a small portion of employment contracts that the city council has no oversight of, and which has gotten the city into trouble before. And that is these individual contracts that exceed what's in the employee handbook, either through the pay is outside the pay table, or the leave accrual, or it offers severance pay, anything that's not really already in the employee handbook. So all I'm trying to do is ensure that city council has oversight of 100% of all employment contracts. That's the intent of this. And I understand there may have been some, I guess, misunderstanding that I was looking to go after and chase after existing contracts, which I think is futile. It's a legal document, which I think we had zero chance of ever getting, get it revoked. So this is for future contracts the city administrator has to write, and he might very well have a great explanation as to why he needs to do it, because the employment market is tough for some particular specialties, and he may need to go outside the current pay table, but all he would have to do is bring that to the city council, explain the situation, and they would have an attempt to review it and determine whether they thought it was an appropriate move. So that's the what's the kind of the impetus behind this motion, which is now in writing as item 10.1. James, anything to add to that?
No, just that I now fully support it under the with the future contracts moving forward. So that will support.
Okay. All right. Given that, do I hear a motion on this?
I move to direct the city administrator to submit all future employment contracts which exceed the guidelines contained in the employee handbook to the city council for review and approval before being finalized. This would include, but is not limited to, pay which falls outside the pay table for the position, inclusion of severance pay, and differing accrual rates for sick and paid time off.
Okay. Council, motion made by Councilor Kenyon. Do I hear a second on this?
I'll second that.
Motion seconded by Councilor Brewer. Any questions of staff or me, or further information required,
I
please?
have a question. So I read the policy for public contracting and purchasing for Oak Ridge that you referenced in this agenda. And I love your motion. I think it's great. I was just wanting to verify the details on the agenda item, because when I read this, it talks in the agenda about awarding contracts and amendments without specific authorization by the city council whenever the contract is in the amount of $50,000 or less, and then they have to get approval for over 50,000. But the only contracts that it references that I pulled from this was personal services.
Right.
So it doesn't reference any personnel contracts. So I was confused by that part, but the motion itself,
Yeah,
I think is super solid.
that was kind of background, because in the current charter, which I know it's not going to be the same if it passes in November, the update to it, but it does say that the council and mayor shall endorse all bonds for licenses, contract proposals. So I put that in there as background, with the idea that these employment contracts are also contracts that are not covered by that particular.
Yeah.
That is stated at restricted to those in personal services contract of the attorney and that.
Yeah,
Yep.
got it. I learned a lot though, so that was good.
Please, Councilor Kenyon.
Yeah, I have a couple things. One, I'll start with, there must have been a complete misunderstanding at the prior meeting when you brought this up, but I pretty distinctly remember asking you, like, specifically why it would be helpful to look at current contracts, and I felt pretty solid that that's what you were looking for, and that's why I was like,
When you say current, I thought you meant coming to us today, not past contracts, but current contracts, which would
oh,
be ones that, like, he's probably, I don't know if he's thinking of letting one for the new finance director or not, but if that was the case and it was outside the pay tables, then that would have come to us. I would consider that current, not ones that are already signed.
okay. And I was thinking the complete opposite. I was thinking a current valid contract.
Yeah.
So, so that's where I was at when we went through that before. But I also wanted to point out that the current charter, which you do quote here, that says, the mayor shall endorse all bonds for licenses, contracts, and proposals and countersign orders of the treasury. That specific line has been contested twice that I know of in all the years I've been doing council. It's been interpreted by our attorney to mean something completely different than what. And I mean, this is something that's been a bone in my contention for 10 years.
Yeah.
And hopefully is going to get resolved with the new writing of the
What's absent in the new draft, so there's nothing that says.
Right.
anything.
but there is a reference to all decisions made by council have to be signed by the mayor. And so your motion to move, you know, for all future employment contracts, I think is great, and I feel like it should be in the charter.
I tried. Anyway.
I mean, I tried. It failed
I tried.
because of this,
Okay.
but whatever.
Okay, any other questions on this before we go to a vote? Online, unseen. All right, the motion was to direct the city administrator to submit all future employment contracts which exceed the guidelines contained in the employee handbook to the city council for review and approval before being finalized. This would include, but is not limited to, pay which falls outside the pay table for the position, inclusion of severance pay and differing accrual rates for sick and paid time off. Jack, would you call for a vote, please?
Mayor Cutchin.
Aye.
Counselor Brewer,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Bjornson,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
I
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, moving on to 10.2, that's a 2-year loan note extension request for OIP Lot 6 owned by CK Designs / Cody Jones. James?
All right, so back in 2019, council authorized the sale of OIP Lot 6 to CK Design by Cody Jones, who was here tonight online. $52,200. It was a seller carried sale. So they've been making their monthly payments of $211 a month at an interest rate of 6%. The balloon payment is due at the end of October. Mr. Jones would like to extend the terms for another 2 years. So that would actually allow him to start breaking ground on a manufacturing facility here in the OIP, rather than using that money to make the balloon payment and have it save up again and try to break ground. He has a new offshoot of this company called Fusion Rankin Counties LLC. Provided the website and stuff. They're doing some really cool work, metal work, making the counties attractive, designed in a number of ways. So that's what we'd like to start building, manufacturing here in Oak Ridge using local talent. So, you know, in my opinion, it's a win-win. We'll make a little bit more money on the interest for 2 years, and Cody Jones to move forward, starting facility versus looking at now that later he hasn't missed any payments. Concerns about that. Jones is available online. There are any questions.
Do I hear a motion on this?
I move to approve allowing CK Designs to extend their payments on the note for the purchase of the OIP Lot 6 by up to 2 more years and allow the city administrator to execute the contract to do so.
Okay, motion made by Councilor Brewer. Do I hear a second on this?
I second.
Okay, seconded by Councilor Hollett. Questions of James or Cody on this? Anyone? Councilor Kenyon?
Yes, these questions are for James. the original contract, did you ever find it?
I have the original contract, yes. I didn't want to make it public. Although if it's marked confidential, I think that it can still be accessed through public records request, but I would just respect.
Can council see?
I see no reason why not. Mr. Jones, do you have any reason that councilors couldn't see the original contract? Oh, you're muted, sorry.
I think we'd be fine with that. No reason.
Yeah, I'd like to get a copy of that, and I also want to know if the council would be able to, review whatever contract you're drawing up.
Yeah, I just didn't want to start the process of working on the contract if council is going to say, no, don't do the contract. Create something. We're going to say no, so.
Right.
that's what it is.
And then my last question is, will this mean that there will be a balloon payment at the end, or is this going to take care of the remainder of the balance due for the next 2 years payment?
It's a good question, Cody. I don't know what's remaining.
Yeah, there would still be a payment due. My intention is to pay it off within the 24 months.
Okay,
So James, the current payment would just continue on and the principal would get amortized down just at the same rate that it is now.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Any other questions? All right, the motion was to approve allowing CK Designs to extend their payments on the note for the purchase of OIP Lot 6 by up to 2 more years and allow the city administrator to execute a contract to do so. Jack, would you call for a vote, please?
Yes. Counselor Bjornson,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
aye.
Counselor Brewer,
Aye.
All right, motion passes 6-0. Moving on to 10.3, consolidation of Oak Ridge Fire Department and Hazeldale Rural Fire Protection District to a fire authority. James, is this you or is this Counselor Hollett?
I can give a brief overview and then turn it over to Councilor Hollett.
Okay.
It is her bill. But basically, in the last 2 years, the Special Fire District PG-30 committee has been meeting. Steve Abel's report came out at the end of 2023. We discussed it to some degree here. Council. Recently, there was a unanimous vote by the committee to pursue the fire authority model over a special district. Primarily because the fire authority more flexible and go back on it if need be, whereas a special district is permanent. Mr. Abel is online again, and really want to thank Steve for he's gone above and beyond his contract to help us walk through this. There's potential that we might need to find a little bit more funding. We might need Mr. Abel's help in the planning process. Looking into the fire authority, especially with the PERS liability issues. But as I understand this request for the motion today, it's simply moving forward. Looking at the costs associated with the fire authority. So again, not a permanent decision to be made tonight, but let's move forward. Decision it's on this for a lot. Councilor Hollett, we have more to add.
Yeah. So I just want to say right off the bat, the council is not locked in by approving this tonight. This is not a done deal by any sense. This is simply a motion would mean that it's giving our subcommittee unanimously agreed that we would like to further explore the option and to start the planning process. So forward movement for a fire authority. And tonight, what we're asking is that the council allow us to bring forward some of the things in the works that we would need to do for planning. And with that, it could potentially incur a little bit of legal costs. You know, we're going to need to have an attorney draft up papers to move forward with something like this. So of course that would incur some fees. We need to look at insurance, what that would cost, and we need to bring all those types of things to the council so that they have a real, you know, understanding of potential costs, steps that would take place, also looking at seeing what it would cost for an auditor, all those kinds of things. And I just really wanted to bring this forward to make sure that the council's okay with us doing that before I go any further. There is a small potential that we would use Steve Abel Consulting in that process, but after talking with him, it sounds like if we did, it would be very little, if any at all. We have a lot of there's quite the roadmap available for us to get there. SDAO has kind of a step-by-step process available, as well as a big one is our neighboring fire district, which is Pleasant Hill Goshen, has gone through the process very recently. So they're there to help us out. And also there's a lot of other agencies throughout the state that have gone through this. And I do want to mention that we're not reinventing the wheel here. This is something that it's been very successful throughout the state of Oregon. And yeah, so I'm available for questions, and also Steve Abel, please, if you have any questions to him, direct those to him.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion here?
I move to approve moving forward with planning for consolidation of the Oak Ridge Fire Department with the Hazeldale Rural Fire Protection District to form a fire authority and direct the city administrator to report back on the feasibility of funding for continuing consulting services with Steve Abel.
Okay, Councilor, motion was made by Councilor Kenyon. Is there a second? And motion seconded by Councilor Brewer. Questions, discussion of Councilor Hollett, the staff, or Steve? Go ahead, Councilor Kenyon.
My first question is in specifically the motion to form a fire authority with, maybe it's not in the motion, but I think it's in the information that we saw here. It would be consolidating Oak Ridge and Hazeldale, but I didn't see Westford mentioned. And I thought,
Yeah, I can explain that more. So right now, Westford went through about 3/4 of the process with us, and they really have a lot of other things going on. And I talked to the mayor, and they stepped away for a couple reasons. Funding, they're close to up against compression. That's a big one for them, but the mayor really explained the biggest reason is all of them are not going to be continuing their terms on the council. So just here in a couple months, it'll be an entirely new council coming aboard. And she felt like they have some other really big things going on, I think, with the water department and some other things that they really needed to focus on. And so she felt that this was better to leave for the future council. Also, to put it in perspective, if we move forward with a fire authority, Westford would still need to contract with the fire authority in some fashion. It wouldn't be an option any longer for them to contract with the city of Oak Ridge because fire emergency services would be under a new umbrella. So they would be contracting. But like I said, that's going to be up to their new council, how they want that to look. They are also still very very marginally looking at creating their own fire department. I think they've come to the conclusion that they cannot afford that, but it hasn't been made. I don't think that opinion's been made formal, but they have had information that's come through to show that they just can't afford it. Does that answer your question about Westford?
In other words, there's nothing to consolidate because Westford is not a fire department, so they wouldn't be part.
They're not.
True. However, if at some point, if we have a fire authority with Hazeldale, and at some point Westford wants to become a part of the fire authority, is that going to be an option for them?
Yes.
Or
It-
would they always be contracted?
So it would, so a fire authority is a contract. So it would still just be a matter of them having their attorneys draw up a contract. It would look pretty much identical to what it looks like right now with the city of Oak Ridge, except for there would be contracting services to the fire authority, not to the city of Oak Ridge.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
Services would not change.
Right.
Are there more questions for staff or Counselor Hollett?
And also fire chief is online and Steve Abel is available as well.
I don't see any further questions from counselors, but I have some. I really have a hard time supporting this after I read through this. One, reading through Steve's report, he doesn't address the ambulance service, so he's setting that aside. And so this actually only talks about fire services. So without solving the ambulance problem, I don't know what problem we're trying to solve by consolidating our fire. It's what's wrong with our current fire department and its current construct that we need to consolidate with Hazeldale. They have a great contract with us. If they want to adjust it, they can change the scope of work. They have the ability to talk to the city administrator about services that aren't adequate enough. I just don't know what problem we're trying to solve by consolidating these fire services if we aren't going to address the ambulance problem.
Well, I think that moving forward, there are things that could address the ambulance service and staffing issues. There could be potential grant opportunities under a new authority, consolidating services with Hazeldale could change what we're available to get for grant options. I also think it's a really good faith effort to show the county that we're working really hard towards creating a sustainable service. And I do hope that we work more with them and in helping out with those costs.
So you're saying that the fire authority would have cognizance over the ambulance service?
Yes.
There's potential there for the city to either subcontract with the fire authority or the fire authority to apply for the ambulance service area. And being in a fire authority would give us the opportunity to have a board that is totally for services in our area, not just each separate entity, but for a single entity serving the entire area. So, we can make those choices on what's most important for the district or for the authority. As far as equipment and rolling stock and all those types of things. So there could be some advantages to that.
Okay, it kind of leads into my next question was, so the city, looking at Steve's sort of notional way of authority would work, each city continues to put in, or each part of this authority continues to put in the money they're currently putting in. So Oak Ridge is going to continue to put in the $1.2 million each year, yet have less control over this fire authority because we'll only have one or two counselors on that board of directors. So just as much money, less control over the operation. And that's, to me, is a huge concern. We're still footing the bill and we have less control because the fire authority is going to become this autonomous entity that has board of directors that include Oak Ridge City Council, that include Hazeldale Board of Directors. Maybe someday, well, I doubt the Westford would ever participate unless they find a way. But to me, it's less control, same amount of money, and something doesn't, if I'm an Oak Ridge taxpayer, I have a problem with that. So the next question I have is unanimous vote. I viewed the video. There were two members which voted, there were only two members in attendance, and they both voted yes. That was Councilor Hollett, Councilor Bjornson. The fire chief was in attendance, but I believe he's probably an advisory member, so it's not even a quorum. And most importantly, there was no vote by a Hazel Dell member. And if they aren't willing to play, then why are we even going down this path? This is just a wasted effort. So I agree, maybe you got a verbal from Hazel Dell that they're willing to play, but I'd like to see them come on the public record saying that they are behind this before we move forward with anything and spend any funds at all. Last couple comments, just reading through it in your agenda, Bill. You allude to saving money, and as Steve says in his report, there is no more money out there. We're all a compression. The fire authority, there's no authority to levy. So there's no money savings because there's no duplicity in efforts because we're actually holding both the contracts for both of those entities. So it's not like they have their own separate fire chief. They do have some equipment, but we already have the authority to use it. So I just don't see any savings to be had with this fire authority. And again, you discuss equal voice in delivery of emergency service. Equal voice for whom? We have full authority over delivery of emergency service in the city of Oak Ridge now. So I'm looking out for the citizens of Oak Ridge. While I love having the contract with Hazel and helping those folks, I don't believe they need an equal voice in this until the bill, until they put more money towards it or create a true fire district. And I don't know what the comment about removing politics from emergency services is, but so until there's more here, I'm not ready to move forward any further than this. It's been 2 years approximately since the committee stood up. And with that 2 years, they've waited on the report from Steve Abel and they read it. And then they made this motion with 2 people voting for it. So I'm completely against moving forward at this time. If maybe you can get Hazel Dell on board, maybe get a quorum when you actually vote and come up, and there's some planning you can do without the city council permission. You can go ahead and start developing budgets and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not ready to move forward on this, and that's just my opinion. Yeah.
I have a
Please.
question. Chrissy or Scott, whichever, the part about saving money, I understand that you mentioned something about bringing Hazel Dell in would possibly open up for more grant opportunities. What are some of the backstories to how it would be more beneficial for grants? Like how would that help the fire authority to have Hazel Dell as a part of it?
Scott, would you like to answer that?
Because their area is a little bit more unique than ours, we can utilize that more as needing equipment that's better suited for that area. We can show that we're serving a larger area, larger population. And that gives us a little bit more clout when it comes to grants.
If I'm in there,
Please.
I think that question is kind of moot in some ways because you can't run a fire department based on the hope that you're gonna get.
Day to day, yeah.
That's just unsustainable. I was unaware that Hazel Dell does not voted on this issue. Oh,
That's not actually true. So to clarify that, the last meeting that we had was just the Oak Ridge subcommittee side. So there was 3 subcommittees. The West First subcommittee, as I explained earlier, kind of dropped out for those reasons. And the Hazel Dell subcommittee talked about it. I believe it was board member Melandon brought it up to his board that they would like to move forward with the fire authority, and that discussion happened several months ago. So this meeting was just the subcommittee from the city of Oak Ridge side, and we have one citizen, I believe, on the committee, which is Dave Ackland, and I did call and speak with Dave and got his verbal, he was out of town, I believe, for that week, and got his verbal opinion. And he did ask me to bring that forward to the committee that night. Yes, he wasn't present, but I brought that forward, the things that he said to me. So I
I thought this was a joint committee where they all that you all met together and passed motions together?
Yeah, so we have had multiple joint committee meetings, hashed it out multiple times. We've met with fire chiefs and met with the consultant, and this was our last one for each entity to essentially each subcommittee to make their recommendation to their entity.
So the unanimous vote was it the most recent one that you referred to, or was it some other meeting that all voted in favor of creating a fire authority
I'm speaking about the most recent one,
with the two people at it?
which was the subcommittee for the city of Oak Ridge.
So are they on public record then? Is Hazeldale on public record as saying they want to move forward with the fire authority?
I would have to look through their minutes, but Chief Hollett could probably answer, but I do believe they approved to move forward with planning steps for the fire authority.
I think it'd be a lot cleaner if we actually had a joint session of all those subcommittees and had a vote together and perhaps came to a consensus, approval.
Isn't that the point of having a subcommittee or committees? I think you've stated that in the past, that what good are committees if we're not going to take their recommendations? So we have done that process for quite a while now. We've hashed it out, went through the feasibility study, talked to other districts, did our homework, and then come to a recommendation to our prospective entities.
Councilor King.
I agree. I feel like there's one little step that's been missed of getting all the subcommittees together to make a unanimous decision to bring forward to council. And whether they do that in the council meeting or separately, that we can view it like the video. I do think that should probably happen.
So-
And I wondered if we could just table this for a future meeting.
Is it possible to do a work session with the subcommittees, have them all here, and then like basically just talk about the different views that the two different, I mean, I wholeheartedly believe that the subcommittees unanimously approved this, and I know this has been on the table for a long time. Just as far as moving forward to make sure that, all of our due diligence is done, and maybe to make council a little bit more comfortable with the process itself, because I know, Brian has questions about the reasoning behind it, like why bother? I have some kind of a complex situation. No matter how many times I read through the feasibility study, I get a little lost. So maybe talking about things with committees and, you and Scott, we still have to come in and talk to Scott. I would love to know more about it, but I can kind of understand where they're coming from when they're saying, how can we move forward when we don't really know what's part of that? So I kind of understand where they're coming from, but I also understand where you're coming from. So maybe a work session with the committees, I don't know, it's just a thought.
Councilor Bjornson, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, it was Councilor Brewer.
Oh, you have a question for me?
I have something.
Go ahead, Councilor Hollett.
Sorry, I was muted.
Go ahead, Councilor Bjornson.
I was just wondering if Councilor Brewer was done because it sounded like she was still speaking for a second.
Oh, no, I'm done.
Okay. My only point I wanted to make real quick, as the mayor said, that it's still $1.2 million buy-in without as much say, but that's not exactly accurate, since the taxes that actually are transferred to the Emergency Services Fund is only half of that, approximately $500,000 a year. The rest of the revenue that accounts for that budget for the fire service or for the emergency services is ambulance generated revenue. So it's not exactly all $1 million coming from the taxes with less say.
Thank you. Councilor Hollett, did you still have a comment?
Yeah, so if I can understand bringing more information to the council, and that is what my hopes were today, to go through these next steps. But if we want to backtrack the last 2 years and completely go over the feasibility study and everything that the subcommittee has been working on, that's a tremendous amount of work. And, if you want me to go back to the subcommittee and get a talk again with the subcommittee with Hazeldale, I can understand that, but I think rehashing out everything we've done in the last couple years would be a little bit of a slap in the face to the subcommittee that's been meeting on this. I do think going forward, work sessions would be appropriate, though.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the only holdup, well, at least the major holdup, is we just need to get confirmation that Hazelville is truly on board with this, moving forward, looking at this, and it seemed ambiguous. Now, I know Hazelville, they're a little more old school, they don't write everything down. Probably should, but correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that what we're kind of hung up on, is Hazelville truly on board with?
Really, the way I see it is, well, all we're asking for is, number one, to have that joint committee / council work session and maybe provide some information to those of us that aren't fully aware. Even we're not asking you to go back through the entire study. I know we've been through that. We just want to know what the thought process is, want to know that Hazeldale truly is on board and be willing to come into public session and make a vote, recommending that, as well as the other subcommittee. My mistake, I thought you all met together. I thought it was a joint committee, but in any case, Councilor Burr.
I'm sorry, I have one more question. Counselor Johnson brought up the tax revenue, and I noticed that too. There is a lot of revenue that comes in outside of the taxes, but I know that sometimes fire and ambulance run over a little bit. Like if there's something that comes up, a broken ambulance that needs to get fixed, then the city has to break out, I think it'd be contingency, something to help, cover the cost of things. Is that something that the fire authority would be prepared to not have that ability to lean on the city? Because I know a lot of the politics in the fire department is the squabbling over how much money they get every year through taxes and who's really causing all the financial deficits in the emergency services. And there's all this back and forth, but would the fire authority remove that politics from it completely, or would there still be a deficit at the end of the day if the ambulance didn't receive all the Medicare payments? Sorry about the long-winded question. Does that make sense?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking if there was something major that happened, like an ambulance completely blew up? Who would be responsible for fixing that?
No, I'm saying that if you have your budget and you have the amount of money, and with being tied to the city, if there's something that the fire department can't afford to pay for, and correct me if I'm wrong, the general fund can kind of spot the fire department to help keep things moving along.
Okay. So, I mean, really the idea of fire authority is, Steve and I have talked about this a lot. It's kind of like right now we are all in the dating phase, and the fire authority is kind of the moving in together phase. So when things like that happen, you try to work within your own means, your own budget than you have. And if there was something really major that happened, yes, we would have to go to one of the entities to get extra funding. But we wouldn't really, a fire authority wouldn't really have access necessarily to the general fund for the city.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess my question would be, how would a fire authority, again, if they don't have access to the general fund, how would a fire authority come up with the funds that they needed to stay afloat if they didn't have the city to have their back, for instance, financially?
Okay, well, so this same answer stands, and Steve, please feel free to step in, but I do want to say that the goal of the fire authority is a stepping stone to eventually becoming a special district. And that has kind of always been the goal in the beginning when Hazeldale formed, was eventually to pursue that type of model. So eventually that wouldn't be gosh, I'm not sure how to articulate what I want to say. Steve, do you have a good answer?
Let me clarify a couple of things if I can. One, the mayor appropriately pointed out that I really did not address the ambulance services, and that's a relationship between the county and the city of Oak Ridge. And Chrissy, as you'll recall, even with Lane Fire Authority, they went together. I believe all the ambulance billings went through Lane Rural, since they are the ones that had the contract responsibility with the county, not Lane Fire District 1 on there. So that's a separate issue that could be rolled into an authority. For everybody's sake, what we're really talking about is the creation of a third entity with its own board of directors, which would be made up of the participating entities. And I'm going to go back to the kind of the strategic planning process, where we talk about strategic planning isn't about future decisions, but it's about the futurity of your present decisions. And I think it's really important for the city of Oak Ridge. I believe Oak Ridge is really in the driver's seat on this, to determine where the city wants to be in relation to the fire department. Do they want to maintain a city fire department, or would they prefer in some way to divest of a fire department somewhere down in the future and have it as a separate fire protection entity? If that's the case, then the creation of, I'm using the term authority, which is expanded ORS 190 agreement, is a first step to move in that direction. And as I understand, your proposal is not to create a fire authority at this point, but to go through the steps to present to each of the entities of what the advantages, what the costs would be, and so forth, for which each of the entities, whether it be the city of Oak Ridge, city of Westford, or Hazeldale Fire District, can make an informed decision with actual numbers and everything in front of them. So it's actually putting together the model. So I think one of the big questions is, where does the city want to be in the, in a few years? They want to maintain the city fire department and contract with other entities, which is worked for many years. Or do they want to, and does the city of Westford, if they come back on board, and Hazeldale want to be more involved in that? There's other ways that can happen as well. But really, I guess we're looking at is, where do you want to be in the future? And what you're looking at, as I understand, is just putting together the numbers and the steps and everything, should the city want to go in that direction. And is related to me, we had our conversation earlier in the week, and I'm available by phone to help steer in the right direction. And I'm not charging anything for that. You have a lot of resources there within the county to help you make sure everything is included in whatever the plan is. There's questions for me. I'm more than willing to try to answer any questions. But I just wanted to kind of clarify a couple of items.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Chief Holland, is that you asking for a question?
Yeah, sorry. Just for clarification, Hazeldale board did vote unanimously to move forward with looking at consolidation and the formation of a fire authority at a board meeting. I don't remember exactly which board meeting it was, but I'll look to see if I can find that for you.
Thanks, Chief. Councilor Kenyon?
My question is on, if the fire authority was created, like, I already know that Hazeldale has their own budget, because everyone who pays taxes towards fire up in that area, all that money stays in that budget. But it's my understanding that that total amount that they receive is not what Oak Ridge has been getting from them through the contract over the years.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yes.
So by creating an authority, number one, Oak Ridge taxpayers, homeowners don't have a separate tax for just the fire portion. Is that something that would be created in the future? Or is that with the fire district, not a fire authority?
That would be with a fire district. So the fire authority is kind of an intermediary model.
And so then Oak Ridge would have to just transfer part of our budget to the authority to run the fire part.
Correct.
My question is the full amount of their Hazeldale's current budget going to go into the authority? Or is that something you're trying to negotiate now?
Exactly. That would be part of the planning process. That's the types of questions and information I'm asking to bring forward. Steve put it pretty well a couple moments ago, that those are the kind of things we need to start discussing and putting that model and picture together.
Any other questions?
Well, I would love to see the more information in moving forward, but I also would love maybe within a month having a work session, or like it said in there that the CA would bring forward the new information or whatever, but maybe having some kind of a work session with the subcommittees present to just kind of pick their brains on what they're thinking, and or just involve council in discussion here and there intermittently. I don't know. I think
That's really exactly what we're asking for, is to move forward with planning and bring it to council in a special session, a special planning session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's your motion. Do you want to change it or let it ride?
Let me review it.
I'll repeat it. The motion was to approve moving forward with planning for consolidation of the Oak Ridge Fire Department with the Hazeldale Rural Fire Protection District, to form a fire authority and direct the city administrator to report back on the feasibility of funding for continued consulting services with Steve Abel.
I'll let that motion stand. I think it's.
Okay. Any other before we go?
Can I make a quick comment?
Mhm.
I think that to summarize what I'm getting out of all of this is that we all agree we want to talk more about it. We all agree we want Hazeldale to be involved in that discussion, because it sounds like we want to create an authority with Hazeldale. And you want to put together a bunch more information to present to us. And at that point, we could all sit down and, we will have had time to review the materials. We'll be able to sit down and have a discussion with their full board, our full board, to make final decisions with all the information.
Correct.
That's perfect. I think that.
I just don't know why the motion's even here, because as a committee, you already have that authority to do the planning. I mean, that's why you were created. So, but the motion stands. The motion was to moving forward with planning for consolidation of the Oak Ridge Fire Department with the Hazeldale Fire Protection District to form a fire authority and direct the city administrator to report back on the feasibility of funding for continuing consulting services with Steve Abel. Jackie, would you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Brewer,
Hi.
Counselor Bjornson,
Aye.
Counselor Hollett,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Mayor Ketchin.
No. Motion carries 4-1. All right, moving on. Item 11.1, business from the, or 11, business from the city administrator, 11.1, certified candidates for 4 council seats. James?
All right, so The slate of candidates is now set for the election in November for city council. There are 3 open 4-year seats. For those 3 seats, we have 5 candidates. There are Marty Scott, Kelly Brewer, Councilor Christie Holland, Lee Havier, and Aaron Davis. Folks will obviously be able to vote for 3 of the 5. And we have an additional 4th seat open that is a 2-year seat. We have 2 candidates for that position. That is Carter and Dan Barclay. There is a candidates forum, tentatively, maybe now solidly, October 9th, 6 p.m. at Oak Ridge High School. 6:30. The doors will be open. Doors will be open at 6. Okay. Yeah, come early. So
I think we're starting.
okay, gotcha. So, yeah, that's-
No vote required or anything, right? All right, moving on to item 11.2, that's town hall meetings for proposed new city charter and star voting on September 21st, October 2nd, and October 21st. James?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so we have 3 town hall meetings to discuss the 2 initiatives that will be in front of voters also in November. New city charter and also star voting. We'll do separate votes with separate issues. But we'll combine the town hall meetings. 6, at least 3, but there'll be other measures as well. Check your water bills, for instance, we'll have some information out on both issues next month. But yeah, Saturday, September 21st, 3 p.m. Wednesday, October 2nd, and Monday, October 21st, those are at 6 p.m. Here at City Hall. So let's start with our outreach for this conversation.
Councilor Kenyon, you have a question?
Yes, James, do you guys have? I see you have a color copy, so you do have the ability to print color at the city hall.
Yes, will help.
Was just gonna offer, if you get print me a stack of those, I will make sure they're posted all over town.
Excellent, thank you. And this did go out in the water bill. Back in the water bill.
Perfect.
Yes.
And it will again in the October.
Yes, plus additional information.
Item 11.3, other city business and updates, James.
Just a couple, this late this afternoon, we interviewed 3 excellent candidates for the finance director position. And we are scoring those using star voting. And we should have an announcement on Monday. The permanent finance director leave. Other announcements that we now turn over 38 past due water accounts totaling almost $12,000 to collections. So updates. That's the latest figure on water accounts that we're working on. Past due municipal court accounts and those sent to collections as well.
Councilor Kenyon, do you have something?
Yeah, could you say again, the water bills, you had $12,000 in past due?
Yes, $11,426.99.
Are those accounts all closed?
Well, they're shut off.
Yeah, okay.
But a lot of these are, like people who move away
Uh,
and skip out on the bill. And now sending them to collections.
okay, and you're working on municipal also, that was gonna be my next question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How age do the accounts have to be to get sent to collections? 90 days, 120 days?
I'm sorry, I don't want to misspeak, but around that is
Okay.
minimum.
All right. Any other questions for staff on the updates? Okay. Item 12 is anything removed from the consent agenda. There was none. Item 13 are ordinances and resolutions with public comment. 13.1 is resolution 21-2024 fiscal year 24-25 supplemental budget number 1 with public hearing with public comments. So we'll have James introduce this, and then we will go into public hearing and take comments from any members of the public which wish to voice their opposition or in favor or in general. And then we'll come back and come out of public hearing and go into council discussion, or ask for a motion and then go into council discussion. You have a question, Councilor Kenyon?
Yeah, I just wanted to know if we had any conflicts of interest before we move into discussion.
No, it's a good question. Any conflicts of interest to be declared?
I do. I have a conflict of interest as my spouse is an employee by the city of Oak Ridge, so I will not be voting on the supplemental budget.
Any others?
I do.
Councilor- Okay, please.
I need to declare a potential conflict of interest because I'm a volunteer with the fire department.
Thank you. All right, James, you want to introduce this, please?
Yeah, sorry, today's been so busy, I didn't get a chance to talk to Melody. Do you want to cover this or? Do you want me to cover? It's. It's taking lost sometimes. I'm gonna hand it over to you, because you did all the work on this, and you did all the credit for putting it together.
The summary of proposed budget changes in the general fund. We're looking to transfer $15,000 from the contingency line item to the computer support and equipment line item to cover Excel and software costs that was previously covered by ARPA funds. In the EMS fund, we are looking to transfer $14,095 from the wages line to the overtime line, and that would help track overtime hours more effectively. And then
Because they were previously, they were all lumped together.
previously they were all lumped together in wages. During the budget season, we decided in the police fund to separate percentage out of the wages and into a separate line item, better track overtime. It won't cover all of the overtime for the entire year, but it will at least allow us to track it a little bit better, and then we will need to dip into wages at the end of the fiscal year, most likely. It doesn't change the expense or the revenue in either of those lines. It just transfers some funds within the fund.
Yeah, and just to clarify that, there will still be money left over to wages because we've had two firefighter positions that haven't been filled. So we haven't been paying out that money in wages. We've been paying out overtime. That's the story. But yeah, so the money will be there. We're just trying to have a more transparent budget.
To account for it a little bit better. There's the only change within the budget that we are making that will affect the revenue and expenses is to increase the fireman revenue by $11,000, and that's to account for the Fireman Plus subscription payments. And they basically, the funds come in for the Fireman Plus, and then they immediately leave and go to the Life Flight subscription. So that $11,000 just needs to be accounted for. It wasn't previously because it just came in and went right back out. But because those funds are actual funds, they need to be accounted for both the revenue and expense. So increasing the revenue of the Fireman Plus, and then creating a new line item to account for the $11,000 in the Life Flight subscription payments. Again, transparency and for accounting purposes. In the water fund, we would like to transfer $4,000 from the Oregon Savings Growth Plan to the workers' compensation line because somehow that line got missed, and there is no line item to account for workers' compensation in the water fund. However, the Oregon Savings Growth Plan was overestimated in that fund. So the funds are there to transfer that other line item. Also transferring $7,710 from the same line, Oregon Savings Growth Plan,
and $7,785 from the contingency line item. Again, to the computer support equipment line to account for the Casella accounting software costs. This is the final payment for the entire software bundle. Does not include the monthly subscription, but it is the cost of the software itself. The Oak Ridge Industrial Park Fund, we are looking to transfer $187,490 from the reserve for future expenditure line to the Kokanee Way Utility Improvements line for sewer system repair. This was expected to be spent last fiscal year. However, it was not, and it was not accounted for in this fiscal year. So we do need to have that in place to move forward with that project. The line already exists within the fund, so the transfer would take place refundably. However, the reserve for future expenditures is not allocated, so there is a need for this supplemental budget to account for that.
And this was the project that council approved at the last council. We just had.
We just need to make sure we have the funds within the budget to. Also transfer $18,750 from the reserve for future expenditures line to the contingency line item to account for 10% project overhead, just in case the cost of the quote. That way, there's no need for another supplemental budget if the cost exceeds the quote. We can transfer from contingency into the Kokanee Way Utility Improvements line with a simple resolution. Those are all of the changes that are proposed in the supplemental budget. If there are any questions, happy to entertain.
Do you want to hold till after the public hearing?
Do we have a motion on the?
No, the plan is to go into public hearing, come back out, make a motion, and then go into discussion. Question.
Okay, I was gonna just make the motion, so I'll wait.
Then you get the public hearing out of the way. All right, we'll move into public hearing. It's 7:07. And this will be on the resolution 21-2024 fiscal year 24-25 supplemental budget number 1. I'll open it up. If there are any people online or in the room that have statements in favor of this budget. Supplemental statements in favor. Statements in favor. Statements opposed. Any statements opposed? Statements opposed? Statements opposed? Statements in general? Anyone? Statements in general? Statements in general? None heard. We will close the public hearing. And I'll be looking for a motion on this agenda bill.
I move to approve resolution 21-2024, adopting supplemental budget number 1 for fiscal year 24-25 after a first reading.
All right, motion was made by Councilor Kenyon. Is there a second on this motion?
Second now.
Motion seconded by Councilor Brewer. James, are we gonna be able to pass this? We have 2 conflicts of interest. Well, 1. So we will. Okay, never mind. All right. Okay, the motion's been made by Councilor Kenyon, second by Councilor Brewer. Any questions of staff on this, please?
Yeah. So the first question I have is the transfer in the general fund to computer support. Is this to pay for IT or for actually the software that isn't completely paid for yet?
It is to pay for the software that is not completely paid for. It does not include IT costs.
Okay, so then you mentioned, because it's also in another fund here, we're gonna be finally paying it all off. But you mentioned like an ongoing subscription.
So we received the bill from Casella I think there was a misunderstanding that the software was completely paid for in the last fiscal year, but there was still one outstanding payment to be made. The ways to answer that question as well. It is divided between two funds, the general fund and the water fund. Because the system is primarily used for water billing.
Mhm.
This does not include monthly subscription costs, which is basically IT support. Moving forward, because this is a new system and there wasn't really proper training done, I'd like to see a group training formed so that everyone has the same level of experience and knowledge, so that we're not utilizing the IT support on a monthly basis like we are now, because of not having that initial training.
So is the IT support, are you talking about calling them for support or using our IT? Okay. So, is that support something that we're currently paying for, and is it in the budget, or is that?
Yes, and yes, it is in a separate line item.
Okay.
For IT support. That's where that funding comes from. This is, it could be considered capital outlay, but that's not how it was written in originally. So this is basically purchasing that software. Does not include that support.
Okay. So then my last question on that topic is the IT support. I assumed when we went through the budget that was for our IT guy, what's his name? Elber. So does the line you're mentioning include both enough for Cassell and for Elber?
Correct.
For the current year that we're in?
We hope so.
Yeah, to be honest, probably not,
So we may end up looking at more supplementals.
but most likely.
Okay.
We just have-
That's if the contingency doesn't cover it. It's
True.
possible if there's nothing in contingency to cover it during the fiscal year, that money can be transferred just by a resolution instead of a supplemental.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, that wraps up my questions. Thank you, Melody.
Yeah.
Actually, I did think of one other one. I'm sorry. The one thing that threw me off when we got this report, I was going through and looking at. First of all, I think this is an official form, which is awesome, because I don't think fire supplementals we've ever gotten it on this form for a long time. But what threw me off is, like, for example, for the general fund, where you mentioned the contingency resource and the $60,000. But then in the notes, it's only a $15,000 change. So I figured out that what this is doing is updating the line that's in the budget from what it currently is to the new amount. So all I wanted to ask, which it makes sense to me that now that I figured it out, but is that the proper way of doing it? Because I know I've seen a lot of supplementals where it hasn't been done that way, and so I just wanted to clarify.
I did look at previous supplemental budgets and they were done incorrectly.
Thank you.
And the way that this form needs to read is the new amount in that line item, not the change in the line item. So basically, if this passes, then these are the new line items for the budget from here on out.
Okay.
Cross out the line item that was originally passed and adopted, and we replace it with this number.
Excellent. So last question, I promise. So then when we have the new item, if this is adopted, will that change your software that our reports come every month where it says the budgeted amount and the year-to-date amount, et cetera? So that line will be updated with the new amount from the supplemental.
Correct. That will reflect these are the new line items that will be reflected in all future reports for this fiscal year. Until if and when another supplemental budget is passed, or a resolution is passed where money is transferred from a contingency and another line item. Whatever the council decides at a certain time if there's a change to the budget line items, those are updated in real time, and the old line item is moved.
You don't know how.
Any other questions?
I've been asking for that for-
Any other questions?
I just
Yes.
have a statement, Melody. I just want to say thank you for implementing transparency. Because the overtime has been a major topic of concern for this community, so having it clear and concise is super duper, so thank you. And I was also really confused by the supplemental budget. But now that I get it, I just want to say thank you for all that you do. You're amazing.
Welcome.
All right. Any other questions on this? All right, the motion was to approve resolution 21-2024, adopting the supplemental budget number 1 for fiscal year 2024-2025 after a first reading. Jackie, would you call for a vote, please?
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin,
Aye.
Counselor Brewer,
Aye.
Counselor Bjornson,
Aye.
All right, motion passes 4-0. James, please.
Right. Resolution 21-2024, resolution adopting supplemental budget number 1 fiscal year 2024-2025 and making appropriations. Whereas the city of Oak Ridge resolves the following. ORS 294.471 permits the governing body of a municipal corporation to make a supplemental budget for the fiscal year for which the regular budget is prepared if one or more of the following circumstances exist. A, an occurrence or condition that is not ascertained when preparing the original budget or a previous supplemental budget for the current year or current budget period, and that requires a change in financial planning. B, a pressing necessity that could not reasonably be foreseen when preparing the original budget or a previous supplemental budget for the current year or current budget period that requires prompt action. C, funds that are made available by another unit of federal, state, or local government and availability of which could not be reasonably foreseen during the original budget or previous supplemental budget for the current year or current budget period. D, a request for services or facilities, cost of which is to be supplied by a private individual, corporation, or company, or by another governmental unit, and the amount of which could not be accurately estimated when preparing the original budget or previous supplemental budget for the current year or current budget period. E, proceeds from the involuntary destruction, involuntary conversion, or sale of property that necessitates the immediate purchase, construction, or acquisition of different facilities when carry on governmental operations. F, ad valorem property taxes that are received during the fiscal year or budget period in an amount sufficiently greater than the amount estimated to be collected, such that the difference will significantly affect the level of governmental operations to be funded by the taxes provided in the original budget or a previous supplemental budget for the current year or current budget period. G, a local option tax described in ORS 294.476 that is certified for extension on the assessment tax roll under ORS 310.060 for the fiscal year or budget period in which the local option tax measure is approved by voter. H, a reduction in available resources that requires the governing body to reduce appropriations in the original budget or the previous supplemental budget for the current year or current budget period. I, the original budget of the municipal corporation adopted under ORS 294.456 did not include estimated requirements to pay debt service pursuant to ORS 294.477, or the actual requirements are different from the estimated requirements included in the original budget or a previous supplemental budget. Whereas the attached supplemental budget number 1, exhibit A, fiscal year 2024-2025, one or more of the requirements of ORS 294.471. Now therefore be it resolved that the city council of the city of Oak Ridge hereby adopts supplemental budget number 1, fiscal year 2024-2025, and the amounts for each fund shown in exhibit A, which is the Oregon Department of Revenue Notice of Supplemental Budget Hearing Form OR-LB-SBH attached to this resolution. Be further resolved that the amount shown in exhibit A appropriations for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2024, and for purposes shown are hereby appropriated for each fund. Be further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage. Attachments showing the new fund totals is attached to exhibit A.
Thank you, James. Are there any other motions to be made on this agenda bill?
I move to approve resolution 21-2024, adopting supplemental budget number 1 for fiscal year 24-25 after a second reading by title only.
A motion was made by Counselor Kenyon. A second on this?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Counselor Brewer. Any discussion or further questions, Counselor Kenyon?
I do have one question. I'm noticing in the end of this resolution that you just read, James, that it does say, be it further resolved that this resolution shall be effective immediately upon its passage. I know that because we're doing the second motion tonight, it becomes, adopted, but why would it be effective immediately? That sounds like an emergency. I think resolutions are supposed to be implemented 30 days according to our current charter.
Well, I would consider emergency of some sort because really our budget numbers are inaccurate. We need to fix those inaccuracies, so it's even better.
Also because, we are ready to move forward with the Coconut Way project. We don't have those funds in there. They're not appropriated.
Thank you. So it does sound like it justifies an emergency. Thank you.
All right. So where are we?
I don't.
Yes, no further discussion? All right, and then we'll move on. Oh, we got to vote first.
Oh.
Jackie, would you call for a vote on this?
Yes. Counselor Brewer,
Aye.
Counselor Bjornson,
Aye.
Counselor Kenyon,
Aye.
Mayor Cutchin.
Aye. All right, motion passes for nothing. James?
Right. Resolution 21-2024, a resolution adopting supplemental budget number 1 for fiscal year 2024 to 2025 and making appropriations.
Thank you. Moving on to item 15, that's department, staff report, committee, commission reports. 15.1 is ODAC. James, do you have anything on that?
No. We did meet. I don't remember, we talked about the conference I'm going to do this week. We looked at the realtor record.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the realtor record, and that's still in progress.
Okay. Any questions on this for James? Please.
I did notice on my road, we still have a sign up on a piece of property from our former realtor record. Is she gonna be collecting all the signs, or do we have one?
I actually just found one myself that I need to return to her, so they can be returned
Do you
to.
think I should pull it down, or will we ask her to go pull this?
You are welcome to do that. If you want to be a citizen.
You see?
All right, item 15.2 is the planning commission. Rick, you got it?
So last month, planning commission had a work session where we discussed the mobile food vending units and temporary permit. From to a draft that the planning commission likes, so we'll start moving forward with the DLCD, start the public hearing process and bring that back out to the public, see what they think of it. We'll also introduce the Oregon National Floodplain Insurance Program and Endangered Species Act. In 2022, the floodplain ordinance was redone. It has to be redone again. We have some pretty short deadlines on this one. We have to make a decision by the beginning of December of which method we want of the three. I introduced the three methods of planning commission, and we will be talking about that again. Basically, the short of it is NFIP, National Floodplain Insurance Program, and FEMA have been sued over the Endangered Species Act for like the type of fish that go from the ocean to the freshwater, and we have to make accommodations for that. That's coming down here real soon. Actually got potential with LOC, federal regulations and DLC recommendations and requirements are rather strict. So this is gonna be a hot topic. I'm sure some LOC is talking about it. They have some of their people on it, so we'll see where it goes. Nonetheless, it'll be a fun one. So that was our last night.
Next one is you, Rick, Parks and Community Services.
Yes, we discussed contract progress, Banner Park kiosk progress, Green Waters Park 5-year strategic plan. We also discussed community forestry grant and Willamette Pass joint ventures with the city.
Any questions on this for Rick? Either one? All right, 15.4 is the WAC funding committee. I wasn't there, but was able to get the down low. They were discussing the requirements to actually get our hands on the 500,000 correctly directed spending. There's some environmental stuff we have to do and the rest. So discuss that, as well as looking at the overall project and the funding received and what's still needed to finish it off. So that was the major discussion. The next meeting is on the 26th. Any questions? All right, moving on to 15.5. That's the Special Fire District Subcommittee. Councilor Holland.
I think we beat that horse. Thank you.
Okay. Item 16 is public comment. Anyone in the room with a public comment? Yes, sir.
My name is Louis McCormick. I live at 1539 Road. This little discussion about Hazeldale joining fire department in the city of Mill Bridge. I'm 100%. My wife also, she's not here, but is 100% against it. And there was never one time I voted for this. I could write my name on here and I'd love my name right alongside it so they can know. I don't understand everything. I've been to these meetings. I got piles of paperwork that was distributed for all these things. And we're supposed to be doing these. It's 5 silver words that I don't understand. I'm not very good at that. But I do know where my money came from. I've said this before, probably some people in the room. You pay your house off by the time you're 40, don't know a nickel, some by the time you're 50. When you're retired, you got some money in your pocket. All right, that sounds kind of far out there, but that happens sometimes. Numbers with 49 years, I paid into Social Security. We're doing no nothing, but I have to. All right. Well, I'm getting that check goes directly in our account, my Social Security check. And somebody wants to impose that, taking that money and putting it someplace else. I have contacts that we've used before from Tenton and Oakland, Eugene for that purpose, stealing my money out and using it for other purposes without my signature on a piece of paper or something saying it's okay to do. In other words, what I'm saying is taking money out of Hazeldale Rural Fire Protection. I voted for 2.71 and maybe a little bit per thousand paid for that. Now, I was told when that started, my wife was on the, at that time, that there would be 2 full-time jobs plus benefits, and that never happened. Today, I would vote 100% to disband that Hazeldale. They say your tax rates are going to skyrocket. I can tell anybody out there that if my house catches on fire and I'm down here getting a bag of groceries, it's going to burn to the ground. They're not going to lie to me and tell me it's different. I saw 2 houses or whatever the little goat kid go do that burnt down. Look at what's left. Nothing. I don't care if there won't be their houses or not. What I'm saying is, this fire protection, rural fire protection is supposed to help your football. Now they want to extend stuff up there on the prairie, so they get the state involved with that little house up there. They want to put take more money out there for what? for the state, so they can stay up there and sleep up there. And put restrooms and all that in their own cushy stuff. Anyway. I'm just against that, and it's not clear to me, you know. It's not clear to me what exactly is going on. I understood that young man on that, screen there saying that, something about a fire authority wasn't legal or some such a thing. I have all that paperwork, and I'm not an attorney, but I still have it. If somebody wants to read through it. I never wanted to run the Hazelville meeting down and voted for this. There were meetings in there, and the Westford rep was there, representatives. And the fire chiefs came in, and I'm listening to them. But it's a different language. You know, what I just don't understand what they're talking about. How can you impose a tax on my social security check to pay for something that is in the city limits of Oak Ridge, and I live outside the city? And at the time it was formed, that was supposed to be part of it went to the fire chief, and then some of the time was spent in there for the meeting room purposes, for Hazeldale. And then to be able to store more vehicles down there.
15 seconds, Louis.
Is that 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Anyway, I just don't understand this stuff. Anyway, I'm against, I'm 100% against it. That's what I need to say.
Thanks for your comments.
You betcha.
Any comments online?
Mayor, I just quickly, about his concern about tax rates going up. So even if in this, no final decision was made tonight, just talk about moving forward, look at it. If it was a final decision, tax rates still won't go up. They're half. Last time they would
Well,
sleep a little better.
The other part is, you can't impose that on somebody without a vote. I don't care what anybody said, that's against the rules. You have to have a vote on it.
There's no tax increase under a fire authority. Thank you for explaining that, James.
Councilor Hollett, please. Any other public comment? Please.
I actually was wondering, can I ask a question to Councilor Hall directly about funding for the fire authority?
Can you do that after the meeting? It's not a place to have a back and forth in public comment.
You can get my number from James.
Okay.
Any other public comment online or in the room? All right, none heard. Motion to adjourn.
I so moved.
All right, meeting adjourned at 7:32. Thank you.